Hi, welcome back guys. This is your sensei, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Naruto Changed Hinata's Destiny? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. It had been almost 5 months since Naruto began at Konoha High. Because everyone knew he had no parents, they assumed he was irresponsible and ignored him. Monday was the worst day of the week for him, the day when every class felt twice as lonely. He walked into homeroom and sat in his usual seat with the one next to him empty, as always. The teacher announced that there was a new student and asked her to introduce herself. A shy girl with long raven hair entered and introduced herself as Hinata Hyuga, saying she had come from Tokyo and transferred to the public school. The teacher pointed to the back and said that Hinata could sit next to Naruto. Naruto felt both shocked and excited. Hinata smiled and took the seat beside him. She offered a quiet greeting, and Naruto returned the smile, which made her face flush. He noticed Kiba watching her the whole class, along with a few others, but Kiba's attention made Naruto uneasy because Kiba had always disliked him for reasons Naruto did not understand. When the bell rang, Naruto began to leave, but the teacher asked him to show Ms. Hyuga around the school. Naruto accepted gladly, hoping they might become friends. He caught sight of Kiba still eyeing Hinata. Naruto took Hinata's hand to lead her away. She followed without protest, which filled him with unexpected happiness since no one ever acknowledged him before. He first brought her to the library on the 4th floor. Hinata seemed captivated by the view of the garden and the sunlight behind the trees. Her eyes brightened in a way that made Naruto think she looked very cute. She asked if they could go down to the garden, and Naruto readily agreed. On the stairwell, Hinata's phone buzzed. She checked the message and the light in her face dulled. The sparkle in her eyes was replaced by watery concern. She blinked the tears away and kept walking. Naruto watched her, worried about what had made her so sad. Hinata asked Naruto about his relationship with his parents. Naruto, trying to remain strong, revealed that his parents were dead. Hinata stopped, wide-eyed and clearly upset. She immediately offered apologies and expressed how sorry she felt, saying he must be so lonely. Naruto tried to reassure her that he was okay, waving his hands to calm her, and after a while he helped her settle and stop crying. By the time they reached the garden, Hinata's smile had returned and her eyes were bright again. She pointed out some purple flowers and tugged at Naruto's shirt, delighted. Naruto smiled, though his happiness was quickly interrupted when Kiba suddenly appeared and shoved him aside. Hinata looked up, confused, to see Naruto standing behind Kiba. Kiba introduced himself with a smirk. Hinata returned a shy greeting with her hand near her chest. Naruto moved back next to Hinata and continued the tour. Hinata waved goodbye to Kiba. She then asked if they could be friends, and Naruto, blushing, agreed. Naruto could hardly contain his blush at being called a friend. When Hinata asked if they would finish the tour, he collected himself and led the way to the baseball field. Members of the team, including Sasuke, Tonari, Kiba, and Sai, were playing until their coach called a break. Kiba leaned against the fence and tried to flirt with Hinata, which annoyed Naruto. He took Hinata's hand and led her toward the tennis courts to get away from the interaction. Before they left the field, Tonari approached, bowed briefly, and took Hinata's hand in a polite gesture while introducing himself as Tonari Otsutsuki. Tonari then spoke dismissively about Naruto, calling him an irresponsible orphan. Hinata surprised Naruto by speaking up firmly on his behalf, asking how someone would feel if they had no parents and everyone assumed they were irresponsible. The firmness in her voice was unexpected, since she had been so gentle and reserved only a few hours earlier. Hinata breathed heavily and apologized, calming herself and bowing to Naruto. Naruto stared in shock while Tonari looked impressed and walked away with a smirk. Naruto asked if she was all right. Hinata apologized again, saying she had not meant to yell and that she was sorry for embarrassing him. Naruto smiled sincerely and hugged her. After Naruto had calmed Hinata and shown her around the school, they were allowed to skip class to continue the tour, so they arrived late for the last block. Naruto explained the situation to the teacher, who understood. Hinata introduced herself to the class and received many smiles and smirks from the boys before taking the seat next to Naruto. After class, Naruto and Hinata sat and talked. Sakura and Temari approached. Temari suggested Hinata come hang out with them instead of spending time with someone she called irresponsible. Naruto lowered his eyes and felt his mood sour. Hinata politely declined, saying she wanted to spend time with Naruto. Sakura remarked that Naruto had no parents to tell him what to do. Hinata calmly asked what Sakura would do if she were in Naruto's position, and the two girls fell silent. Sakura offered a vague farewell, waved to both of them, and left with Temari. Naruto was stunned by the sincerity of Hinata's farewell. He thanked Hinata and hugged her, noticing her face flush, which made her seem even more endearing. Hinata stammered that she did not know why, and Naruto offered to take her home. Hinata accepted shyly. Hinata did not really know the way home and became flustered when she walked in the wrong direction, which Naruto found endearing. While searching for her house, they stopped at a flower shop that had caught Hinata's eye. Hinata asked to look inside. Naruto asked if her parents would be worried about her being late. Hinata replied that they rarely paid attention to her and gave a reassuring smile, which concerned Naruto. After leaving the flower shop, they encountered Tonari. Hinata ignored him, but Tonari stepped forward, grabbed her hand, and pulled her close, holding her in his arms. Naruto demanded that he let go. Hinata called for Naruto and struggled to break free. Tonari taunted Naruto, mocking him as a loner and suggesting Hinata would not like him. Hinata then reacted quickly, elbowing Tonari and twisting his grip until he released her, and she ran to Naruto. Tonari feigned being hurt and approached them with a smirk. Naruto moved protectively in front of Hinata and told Tonari to stay away. Tonari backed off, warning that he would return for Hinata, and walked away smirking. Hinata, breathless and angry, checked that Naruto was all right and reminded him that Tonari had been lying and that they were friends. Naruto admitted he was fine, feeling a warm blush rise to his cheeks. They reached the final block of the town, which was small and quiet. Hinata pointed out her house, a small home sitting next to a huge, dark oak house with many windows. Naruto expressed surprise when Hinata walked up to the large house and unlocked the door, explaining that she lived there even though it felt empty. Inside, Hinata showed Naruto to the 4th floor, which she said was her room. Naruto was astonished that she had an entire floor to herself. Hinata opened the door and led him inside. Her room was spacious, with a skylight that revealed the open sky. A large couch sat against a wall of glass, and her bed rested on a raised platform above a small office area, with a flat screen mounted on the wall. Naruto marveled at the size of the room. Hinata admitted it was large and then moved into a separate walk-in closet. Naruto examined Hinata's closet and found it large and organized, with a wall for each type of clothing and 2 wide shelves for shoes. He remarked that she probably even had a pool. Hinata answered that her family owned a pool company and then, after a moment of counting, added that her family owned 17 companies, proud to remember the number. Naruto stood in shock and glanced up at the skylight in her bedroom. Hinata sat on the couch and asked Naruto if he felt lonely at home. Naruto admitted that he did. Hinata invited him to stay at her house that night. Naruto blushed, froze for a few seconds, and then agreed. Hinata's face lit up and she cheerfully said that neither of them would be alone. Naruto's face remained flushed when Hinata smiled at him. She set up a cozy sleeping area for him on the couch opposite her elevated bed with stairs and said she would change into her night clothes. After a few minutes she returned in comfortable sleepwear, her long dark hair flowing from the breeze off the balcony. When she walked toward him, Naruto kept staring, and Hinata noticed his reaction and asked if something was wrong. Naruto turned slightly to avoid her pale lavender eyes and assured her that everything was fine. Hinata gave him a worried, gentle look. Hinata then asked Naruto if he would like dinner. Naruto accepted without hesitation. Hinata smiled and went downstairs to the kitchen, which Naruto thought was large enough to belong in a restaurant. He told Hinata that her kitchen was huge, too stunned to do anything but gape. Hinata smiled and said it was her favorite place in the house while she took out ingredients. She murmured the items she needed as she measured them. He asked Hinata if she knew a lot about cooking and baking as she hurried around the kitchen gathering things she had forgotten. Hinata said she had been cooking her entire life, smiling as she kept her eyes on the knife while she sliced a carrot and added it to a pot that filled the room with a heavenly aroma. He stood watching as she baked cookies in the large oven. Hinata asked Naruto if he knew how to cook. Naruto admitted that he did not, scratching his neck nervously. Hinata asked how he managed to eat. Naruto explained that he either went to a ramen shop or a friend came over to make meals for him. Hinata said she thought nobody liked him at school, and Naruto clarified that the friend did not attend their school. He explained that they had met when they were little on a trip with his parents. The friend's name was Gaara, and they had become close after losing their parents in the same incident while at a daycare. Hinata apologized with a guilty look, and Naruto said there was no need to be sorry. Hinata gave him a pouty face. Naruto held his breath and bit his lip to stop himself from blushing and from impulsively hugging her tightly. A timer went off, breaking the moment, and her expression grew even softer as she moved. Hinata asked Naruto to get plates and cups while she pulled things from the oven. Naruto searched her cabinets, found white plates and glass cups, and carried them carefully into a dining room that was probably larger than his entire apartment. Hinata brought out the food and some cookies and invited Naruto to help himself. Naruto was wide-eyed with excitement for a few seconds before digging into the dishes, which tasted like paradise. Hinata giggled softly, and Naruto smiled even with his cheeks full. After they ate and talked, they returned to Hinata's room and settled down. Naruto said goodnight loudly enough for Hinata to hear, and Hinata replied gently before he dozed off. Naruto woke in the middle of the night feeling something press into his back. It was dark, and when he reached behind him he realized his phone was digging into his spine. Not wanting to turn it on and be blinded by the light, he set it on Hinata's purple carpet beneath the couch. When he opened his eyes to check where he had set it, he noticed Hinata's balcony door was open. He walked over to shut it, and what he saw outside made his heart break for Hinata. Naruto remembered that at dinner Hinata had told him about her family and a younger sister. He flashed back to the conversation. He had asked if she had any siblings. Hinata had set down her cup and looked down with an admiring, sad smile before explaining that her sister was in the hospital and would be there for the rest of her life. She had blinked back tears as she spoke. Hinata had said that her sister had been the only one who cared for her, who loved her even though Hinata considered herself shy and inadequate as an older sister, and that she had helped Hinata when Hinata could not help herself. She had mentioned a cousin named Niji who cared for her, and then cried silently. Naruto had stood and hugged her gently, apologizing for asking and offering what little comfort he could. Back in the present, Naruto stood outside the door in shock. Hinata was in front of a girl with brown hair who was in a wheelchair and connected to medical machines and tubes. 3 doctors were attending to her. The girl had the same pale lavender eyes as Hinata. Hinata stood crying as the sister offered a weak smile, surprising the doctors who were not expecting her to speak. Hinabi greeted Hinata gently. Hinata was too stunned to form words and could only cry and listen. Hinabi pulled herself into Hinata's arms and teased that Hinata was the same as always, trying to comfort her. Naruto put a hand on Hinata's shoulder. Hinabi asked Hinata to listen and told her that she would not be around much longer. Urged Hinata to find people who would love her even more and joked weakly about Niji, asking Hinata to stand up for herself if she needed to. Hinabi promised that she would always be with Hinata and that she would remain in Hinata's heart. Nurses offered sympathetic looks while Naruto held Hinata back so she could not run after the ambulance. They watched the ambulance drive away. Hinata cried harder than Naruto had ever seen anyone cry. Naruto felt a tear on his own face as he watched the beautiful girl next to him in such pain. He lowered his head and apologized. Hinata turned to him and, despite the tears still streaming down her face, managed a smile before saying that her sister was happy now. Hinata collapsed into Naruto's arms. Naruto stroked her head while she cried on his chest. After a while Hinata fell asleep. Naruto carried her up to her room and laid her in bed. It was Saturday, and he did not think she could have made it through a school day. He sighed and looked up at the clear glass roof as the sun rose. Hours passed and Naruto grew bored after exploring Hinata's house. He sat on the couch in her room. Hinata sat up, rubbing her eyes. Naruto walked over and gave her a warm smile and a gentle pat on the head. She began to cry again, and Naruto pulled her into a comforting hug. She cried until she fell asleep once more. Naruto POV. It was Monday. Naruto had been at Hinata's house trying to calm her down. He had tried everything, but nothing seemed to change. Hinata insisted she could go to school, wiping her tears away, though Naruto worried she might break down. She got up from her bed, went to her closet, and changed. Naruto thought how lucky they were to have every class together and told her to ask him if she needed anything. Hinata nodded. Naruto urged Hinata to leave and they stepped out into the cold winter air. At the school gates, Naruto asked if she was sure she could do this. Hinata kept her head down and nodded, and Naruto followed her inside. They sat in homeroom until Sakura arrived in a rush, greeting Hinata with a bright smile. Hinata returned a fragile smile and the two chatted until the bell rang and Kakashi-sensei arrived late as usual, pointing to the little poster he kept about getting lost on the path of life. When the bell rang for the next class, the halls filled with students. Hinata remained seated for a moment, expression hollow. Naruto rose to speak with her, but she stood and walked out quietly. The next lesson was a unit on family, which Naruto knew would be difficult. He went into the classroom before Hinata and explained her condition to the teacher, who agreed to avoid discussing family matters in front of her. A classmate erupted loudly about wanting to talk about family and about a fight with her sister. The teacher glanced toward Hinata, and Naruto watched Hinata's face as tears began to fall. Naruto asked the teacher urgently for permission to take Hinata to the nurse, and the teacher agreed. At the nurse's office, Naruto sat Hinata on a bed and explained the situation again. The nurse understood and listened carefully. Hinata apologized between deep breaths, and Naruto hugged her tightly, telling her there was nothing to be sorry about and allowing her to cry on his shoulder. After the bell, Naruto stayed in the nurse's office with Hinata. Sakura came running in and worriedly asked if Hinata was all right, taking her hand. Naruto quietly told Sakura that Hinata's sister had died. Sakura's eyes widened and she hugged Hinata, who only cried silently. Naruto spoke with the nurse, who said Hinata could skip school while she recovered and that having someone who cared around might help her heal sooner. Naruto thanked the nurse and returned to Hinata. Naruto asked Hinata if she wanted to go home. Hinata nodded through her tears and Sakura offered to come along. Naruto helped Hinata up and they walked to her house. Sakura was stunned when she saw Hinata's home. It was large and elegant. Naruto retrieved the key hidden under a fake rock and unlocked the door. He brought Hinata up to her room while Sakura lingered to look at the house. Naruto set Hinata down on the couch. Hinata asked him to call her cousin, and Naruto took her phone to find the number while Sakura wrapped a blanket around Hinata. Hinata POV. A week had passed since Hinata's sister's death. Naruto had visited every day after school, and this Sunday he planned to spend the day with her. When the door opened, Hinata looked up and saw Naruto enter with a warm smile. Hinata smiled back. She knew she hadn't smiled in a long while, and she could see Naruto's surprise. Hinata told Naruto that she would return to school the next day. Naruto asked if she was sure, and she assured him that she was. She thought about the people who cared for her cousin Neji and Sakura, and tried not to assume anything about Naruto's feelings. They decided to spend the day baking together. On Monday morning, Hinata dressed and prepared to go back to school. Naruto arrived as he did every day, and Hinata greeted him cheerfully. Naruto's face flushed, and he returned the greeting with a nervous smile. They left together and entered the school gates, where a crowd of students quickly surrounded them. The students bombarded Hinata with questions about how she was, why she had been absent, and where she had been, and some spoke to her with affectionate concern. Hinata and Naruto both felt awkward and flustered. Sakura pushed through the crowd, told everyone to give them space, and hugged Hinata tightly, asking if she was feeling better. After assuring Sakura she was okay, Hinata grabbed Naruto's wrist and guided him toward homeroom. Naruto stammered that he was all right as the bell began to ring. He admitted, scratching his neck, that nobody had ever noticed him in a good way. She felt sorry for him and hugged him at once. He tensed for a moment and then relaxed. A smile spread across her face when he returned the hug gently, She released it reluctantly. He thanked Hinata and said he really needed that. The bell rang. The teacher walked in and told the students to take their seats, then announced they would be working in pairs and explained that the class would prepare a project to persuade the principal to approve an outdoor classroom. She looked over at Naruto paying close attention. When the teacher finished, he told them to find partners. She called to Naruto and stood beside him. He smiled and glanced toward the teacher, who was arguing with a student. She asked if something was wrong. Explained that the teacher had said he needed to speak with him after class and that he was trying to figure out what it might be. She answered quietly but happily. When the teacher said they could begin the project, she grabbed her laptop while Naruto went to get a nature book. She suggested that arguing a natural classroom would help students feel calmer might convince the administration. Naruto agreed and smiled in a way that warmed her. When their hands brushed, her face warmed with embarrassment. Naruto noticed her flushed face and, concerned, checked her forehead for a fever with a gentle touch. She stammered that she was fine, and he worried that she might need the nurse. She thought about how she had trained for years and expected to be immune to most things, which made the unexpected lightheadedness troubling, but she dismissed the thought and declined the nurse. He watched her for a moment, and she tried to shrug off the attention. When the bell rang, she cheerfully told Naruto they should go and walked out with a smile. He followed. She wobbled as they walked to their next class. Naruto steadied her. The dizziness continued as she took a seat beside him. He placed a comforting hand on her shoulder and asked if she was all right. She managed a weak smile and said she was fine. By the last PRD she was exhausted and leaned on Naruto to move down the hall. Her father was a powerful man with many enemies who might try to target the family. Because she felt neglected by him, she had little protection and had been trained for years to defend herself and resist many threats. Still, the thought of being caught off guard unsettled her. She heard her name faintly and felt a warm hand take hers. Naruto stood and gathered his bag as the students flowed out of the classroom. She rose and stumbled, bracing for a fall, but Naruto caught her in his arms. She apologized and bowed in embarrassment. Naruto crouched to her level, asked if she was all right, and stayed close until she assured him she would be better soon and gathered her things to go home. Naruto walked beside her until they reached her house. A short pink-haired girl waved from the doorstep. Sakura ran up to her, and Hinata hugged her in greeting. Naruto asked when the two had become so close. Hinata explained that Sakura had often come over to give her comfort at home. Sakura had been confused at school because Hinata had never explained what had happened. Sakura laughed, and Naruto's face colored slightly. Hinata's smile faltered as she wondered whether his blush had been for her or for Sakura, but she reminded herself that Sakura was a dear friend and opened the door. Sakura burst into the house and excitedly announced a sleepover. Hinata and Naruto agreed, and Sakura suggested they make some food. Hinata laughed and led Sakura toward the kitchen, and Naruto followed along, trying to keep his thoughts to himself as the three friends prepared for the evening together. She asked loudly but sweetly for me to set up the blankets and pillows on the couch. I yelled that I would and ran up to her room where the blankets were. I opened her closet looking for blankets, found a pile of pillows instead, carried them downstairs, and arranged them on the couch. Then I searched a few other closets, found several blankets, and brought them back downstairs. Hinata's POV. After the game of Truth or Dare, Hinata could not think straight. She was still processing what had happened between her and her crush, who was also her best friend. They started a movie and Sakura settled them so that Hinata sat next to Naruto while Sakura hugged a can of Mountain Dew. After the second movie, Hinata dozed off against Naruto's shoulder. He did not seem to mind. Hinata woke up quietly to see Naruto and Sakura sleeping. Naruto's snoring was noticeable, but she found it endearing. She walked into the kitchen and began making pancakes, bacon, and eggs. By the time she set the food on the table, Naruto and Sakura were already sitting with forks in their hands. Naruto complimented her on the meal. Hinata returned a grateful smile. Sakura announced that they should go shopping. Hinata and Sakura hurried out of the kitchen excitedly while Naruto hesitated, stuffing his hands into his pockets. Sakura ran for the door, and Naruto followed with a small smile. They arrived at Forever 21 where Sakura waited outside. Hinata beamed and dragged Naruto inside. Naruto asked if he really had to be in the store, and Hinata begged him with an imploring look. Naruto's face flushed slightly and he agreed, walking in front of her. Sometime later, they walked out of the store. Hinata was wearing a magenta hat and a long-sleeved shirt with a purple skirt and black leggings, and she had a new white purse. Naruto struggled to hold all the shopping bags. Hinata apologized and started to help him carry a few. Sakura protested that the boys were supposed to carry such things, but Hinata simply laughed and kept helping. They left the mall with Naruto walking just behind her and Sakura at their side. Naruto paused at an exit when he noticed Kiba. He suggested they use a different door. Hinata asked why, and Naruto explained that Kiba was there. Kiba greeted Hinata with a nickname that made her heart sink because it came from someone unexpected. Naruto admonished Kiba for using that name. Hinata forced a small smile and tried to keep her feelings hidden. Kiba said he was just passing by and then proposed going to a cafe now that Hinata was there. Sakura stepped forward, calm but protective, and said they already had plans. She briskly led Hinata and Naruto to the car, ignoring the shopping bags she had refused to carry earlier. In the car, Sakura remarked that she supported Naruto and Hinata as a pair. She said it playfully and with certainty. Naruto and Hinata both turned bright red. Sakura asked where to eat and cheerfully suggested Olive Garden. Hinata eagerly agreed and looked to Naruto for his answer. Naruto agreed, still a little flustered. They arrived at the restaurant and Sakura teased Hinata about how much she must love food. Hinata joked that she could out-eat Sakura, and Sakura replied that she might also outdo Hinata in winning Naruto's attention. Hinata puffed her cheeks in a playful protest while Naruto's face remained flushed. At the restaurant, Naruto asked for a table for 3 and the hostess directed them to the waiting area. They sat with Hinata in the middle, Sakura on one side and Naruto on the other. Sakura nudged Hinata and whispered about what might be going on between her and Naruto. Hinata denied anything was happening, though she was embarrassed. A server led them to their table and left a basket of breadsticks for them to share. Hinata and Sakura delightedly reached for the breadsticks while Naruto warned them not to eat them all before he could. They began their meal together, comfortable in each other's company. Hinata grabbed 3 breadsticks while Sakura quickly took the rest. The waiter politely asked if he could take their order. Hinata swallowed and asked for fettuccine alfredo and a Sprite, and the waiter nodded as he wrote it down. Sakura and Naruto had just finished their breadsticks by the time he took their orders. They ordered and waited for their food in comfortable silence. When the meals arrived, they ate and praised how good it was. Hinata offered to pay, but Naruto protested and tried to pay instead. Hinata insisted he keep his money, and Naruto reluctantly agreed. Sakura grabbed the remaining breadsticks and dashed out laughing while Hinata left a generous tip for the waiter. Sakura drove Naruto home and then headed toward Hinata's house. On the way, Sakura asked Hinata whether she would rather marry Kiba or Naruto, grinning at the question. Hinata blushed and answered Naruto, and Sakura squealed with delight, already planning bridesmaid duties. Sakura stopped in front of Hinata's house and, still excited, said she would bring snacks to the wedding. Hinata laughed, waved goodbye, and ran into her house. Hinata locked her door and sank onto the couch, reaching for the remote to turn on the TV. The news reported that a man had taken hostages at a nearby school and that authorities had not yet located him. Hinata turned the TV off, unwilling to sit with the image in her head. She went to her room, changed into comfortable pajamas, and called Naruto. He answered cheerfully, and Hinata felt comforted by his voice. They talked for a while and said goodnight. Hinata set her phone down, prepared her school uniform for the morning, and lay on her bed with her eyes closed, letting her thoughts wander. The next morning, Hinata woke to a bird singing outside her window. She dressed in her uniform, went to the kitchen with her phone in hand, and opened the door to find Naruto standing there, smiling. He greeted her, and Hinata replied, "Happy to see him." Naruto mentioned the incident at the nearby school and noted that it had been close to their own. Hinata admitted she had heard about it and felt a twinge of worry, but they both tried to reassure each other. Hinata locked the door behind them and they walked to school together as usual. At school, their homeroom was lively. Tonari teased Naruto, and Naruto answered back with quick comebacks that had the whole class laughing. Hinata laughed along, embarrassed and delighted. When Tonari made a cutting remark, Naruto shot back with another joke, and the class dissolved into laughter again. Hinata praised Naruto for his quick wit, and Naruto smiled proudly at her. The bell rang, but it was cut off by a different alarm that signaled everyone to hide. The teacher urgently told the students to hide and locked the doors and windows. Naruto grabbed Hinata's hand and pulled her into a closet. Tonari joined them. Hinata retorted sassy comments to Tonari in the dark to keep her nerves down. A few moments later, there was a loud bang and screams echoed through the hall. Naruto covered Hinata's mouth to keep her quiet while Tonari made a high, nervous sound. The closet door was forced open by a sudden breeze, and chaos rushed in. An intruder quickly separated Hinata from Naruto and grabbed her, holding her under threat while other students were pushed against the wall. The intruder made a threatening remark and grabbed Hinata's arm, prompting panic in the room. Hinata snapped and tried to call out. Hinata shouted that she did not have a bunk bed and kicked him across the room. She was breathing heavily and holding her hand to her chest. Hinata told him off and threw a nearby book at him. She groaned in annoyance. Some students called out that Hinata was amazing. Tonari muttered that he would never make her mad, and Naruto nodded in agreement. Naruto walked toward Hinata and smiled, praising her for the nice job, which made her blush fiercely. Hinata thanked him softly, trying to hide her embarrassment. School was not cancelled despite the commotion. Hinata walked to her next class fielding questions about how she had taken him down. She sat in math class, dreading it. The teacher was strict and quick to demand answers. The teacher called on Hinata for the answer. Hinata apologized that she did not know it, though she did not want to explain her method. The teacher glared and pointed her ruler, shouting that there was an idiot at the end. Hinata blankly asked which end, which flustered the teacher. The teacher then scolded two boys for talking during the lesson, and Hinata intervened to point out that the lecture was continuing over their conversation. When the bell rang, the students praised Hinata for what she had done and patted her shoulder. Hinata asked Naruto if that had been their last class. He nodded, and she sighed in relief. They parted ways for home. Hinata went to bed early, planning to wake early and make breakfast for both of them. Hinata woke to a cold tickling along her arm and pulled it back under the blanket. She glanced at the clock, realized it was late, and scrambled out of bed. She noticed the room was dark and saw heavy snow piled on the glass ceiling. Excited, she dressed quickly in jeans, a long-sleeved shirt, a purple jacket, boots, and gloves, and ran downstairs. She found Naruto on the couch wrapped in a blanket with a cup of hot chocolate, watching a movie. Naruto greeted Hinata warmly and explained that school had been cancelled and he had wanted to see if she liked the snow. Hinata blushed at his warmth but hid it, then declared that she loved the snow and dashed outside. She tripped and landed in a pile of snow, pretending it had been intentional. Naruto laughed, helped her up, and checked that she was all right. Hinata brushed snow from her clothes and replied that she was fine. They decided to have a snowball fight. Naruto formed a snowball and tossed it toward Hinata, who dodged and teased him. They chased each other through the streets for about an hour before realizing they were near a coffee shop and calling a truce. Inside, Naruto scanned the menu and Hinata chose a mini chocolate cake and hot chocolate while Naruto opted for ramen. The food arrived. Naruto ate enthusiastically and Hinata laughed. As she sipped her hot chocolate and ate her cake, Hinata felt the outing had the warmth and nervous excitement of a date and became flustered. She finished quickly and stood up, saying she wanted to get back into the snow. Naruto nodded, and they left a tip before heading out. On the walk home through the snowy streets, Hinata invited Naruto to watch movies at her house and he agreed. Hinata asked if she might be able to see his house someday. Naruto responded that maybe another time and seemed a little nervous. Back at Hinata's house they changed into comfortable clothes, settled in with snacks, and started a movie marathon. They watched several films and eventually fell asleep on the couch in the early hours of the morning. Naruto woke from a pleasant dream when his pet fox, Kurm, knocked him off the bed. He told Kurm he would feed him soon, glanced around the messy apartment, and promised to clean before Hinata came over. He prepared a bowl of food for Kurm and set it down. He took a uniform from his closet, slipped it on quickly, grabbed a piece of toast, and headed to Hinata's house. He knocked, and Hinata stepped out with her hair in a ponytail and no shoes, hurriedly gathering her bag and slipping on her shoes. Naruto asked if she was in a rush. Hinata admitted she was, and then, once ready, they left together. Hinata ate a piece of toast and let her hair fall back down. Naruto asked if she had heard about the school festival, and Hinata reacted with surprise and excitement. When Hinata asked if Naruto wanted to go together, his face turned bright red and he froze. Hinata asked if he did not want to go. Naruto stammered and was calmed by Hinata's gentle giggle. She asked again if it was a yes or no, and Naruto, scratching his neck, agreed. Hinata cheerfully told Naruto that the festival would be like a date as she put a few things in her locker. Naruto became flustered and stammered his agreement. Throughout the morning, a few boys asked Hinata to the festival and she politely declined, which left them more charmed by her. Naruto was relieved that she was going with him. Tonari approached with a flamboyant air and challenged Naruto, insisting Naruto should stay away from Hinata so Tonari could express his feelings. Naruto responded that he did not think Hinata would want to be with someone silly all the time. Tonari boasted that he was smarter and could fix his own flaws with science, and when he tried to act familiar with Hinata, Naruto grew worried as Tonari came too close and used a nickname. Tonari asked Hinata to go out with him while getting uncomfortably close. Hinata pushed him away, told him bluntly that he could go make money for her instead, and walked off. Tonari vowed he would win her over someday and left with a smug expression. Naruto checked on Hinata and she smiled, saying she was fine, and he silently treasured that smile. In class, Mr. Irika announced that they would plan for the festival. A student asked why they were having a festival, and Mr. Irika gave a nervous explanation that the school had arranged it. The day passed quickly and the final bell eventually rang. After school, Naruto and Hinata went their separate ways to get ready for the festival. Naruto decided to wear his usual orange and black jacket with jeans because he could not afford a suit or kimono. When it was time to go, he grabbed his red scarf and hurried to Hinata's house. Hinata opened the door wearing a blue kimono patterned with red flowers and a black sash, her hair in an elegant bun with a red flower tucked in. She asked if he was ready, blushing and looking down. Naruto quickly composed himself and they walked to the school together. Naruto complimented her appearance, and Hinata returned the compliment softly. At the festival, Hinata's eyes lit up with delight. She asked if they could get cotton candy because she had never had it before, tugging on Naruto's sleeve. After she tasted it and smiled, Naruto guessed she liked it. When a young man asked if the seat beside them was taken, Hinata joked that it would be hers if he sat down, and he walked away when Naruto made a playful face at him. Sakura ran toward them calling out, and Hinata greeted her warmly as they hugged. Sakura teased that Naruto had finally asked Hinata out. Hinata cheerfully corrected her, saying that she had asked Naruto. Sakura was surprised and admitted that she had not even asked her own date out. Naruto asked Sakura who she had come with, and Sakura blushed and revealed she had come with Sasuke. Hinata reacted with surprise and then hopped onto Sakura in excitement, and everyone around them reacted with astonishment. After talking with Sakura for a while, Sasuke came over and took her away. Naruto and Hinata ended up sitting on the school roof. Naruto told Hinata that he needed to ask her something, gathering his courage. Before he could finish, Sakura shouted from below that she and Sasuke were dating, and Naruto looked down to see Sakura beaming as Sasuke walked beside her. Naruto started toward Hinata's house and saw Sakura and Sasuke crossing the sidewalk on the other side. Naruto called to Sakura, and she waved and greeted him cheerfully while Sasuke remained distant and curt. Naruto felt annoyed. He had never been fond of Sasuke's temperament. At Hinata's house, Naruto helped her get ready for school because she seemed a bit out of sorts. Naruto asked Hinata if she was okay, and Hinata admitted she did not feel very well and rubbed her head. At the school gates, Sasuke's admirers swarmed them. Karen complained about why Hinata drew Sasuke's attention, while Hinata headed toward homeroom. Naruto hurried to catch up with her and offered to go with her. The two of them stood awkwardly in a brief silence until Tenten appeared and teased them that everyone already knew they liked each other. Hinata lowered her head in embarrassment, and Tenten greeted them both warmly. Later, Naruto asked Hinata if she had made plans for Valentine's Day. Hinata said she might stay home and laughed nervously. Naruto asked what she would do if someone asked her out. Hinata confessed that she would probably refuse because only one person had her heart, and then she revealed that the person in question was Naruto. Naruto was astonished and relieved to know he would not be rejected. At lunch, the usual group met at their picnic table. Sakura arrived with Sasuke in tow. Hinata greeted Sasuke politely, and Sakura sat down and explained that she wanted to sit with them rather than with the cheer squad. Sasuke muttered about the cheerleaders, and Sakura dismissed him with a smile. Sakura then asked whether Naruto and Hinata were dating yet, and Hinata replied confidently that they were not yet dating. Naruto pouted, and Hinata giggled, making Naruto smile faintly. Later, Naruto briefly zoned out, and Hinata waved a hand to bring him back to the present as they walked into the cafeteria. The bell rang and students scattered to their next classes. After school, Hinata stopped at her front door and thanked Naruto for being there for her. Naruto told her that it was no problem. As Hinata was about to close the door, Naruto turned back, summoned his courage, and asked Hinata to be his Valentine. Hinata accepted with a warm smile and closed the door, leaving Naruto standing in her driveway with a wide, stupid grin as he did a little happy dance. On his way home, Naruto stopped to buy gifts and flowers for Hinata so she would have something to give in return the next day. He imagined her saying that Naruto was her Valentine when others asked, and he walked home grinning. Hinata's perspective at night. Hinata walked into the kitchen and tied an apron around her waist, determined to make chocolates for Naruto. She took out melting chocolate and heart molds, measured a quarter of the candy melts into a glass bowl, and set it in the microwave while murmuring that she was ready. After melting the chocolate and pouring it into the molds, she placed them in the freezer for 20 minutes. Hinata realized she needed cut bags and decided to run to the store. At the store she noticed some classmates, a few boys struggling over flowers and others wandering in the baby aisle. She picked out heart-patterned bags and one with a ramen design, thinking Naruto would like them. Outside the store she saw puppies in a box and Naruto looking at them. Hinata greeted him by name. Naruto responded happily and explained that he was getting some things for Valentine's Day. Hinata said that she had been doing the same and mentioned she was heading home, then waved goodbye as Naruto stayed to look at the puppies. At home Hinata locked the door and took the chocolates from the freezer. She filled one of the bags with the heart chocolates, tied a ribbon, and stood there feeling proud of her work. She made a quick dinner of instant ramen with ham and other additions and ate alone at the dining table. Hinata decided to go to bed early. She changed into soft shorts and a tank top and lay down, worrying about how she would give the chocolates to Naruto. She thought about how hard it was to talk to him without blushing or stuttering and reminded herself that giving him chocolates would be easier than confessing her feelings aloud. After a while of bickering with herself, she drifted off, determined to give him the chocolates. The next morning Hinata overslept and smashed her alarm before rushing to get dressed in her school uniform. She shoved a piece of toast into her mouth, grabbed the bag of chocolates, and hurried outside, where Naruto was waiting and waving nervously. Hinata tried to greet him without choking on her toast. Naruto asked if she was ready for school, and she said that she was. They walked together toward the school gates. At the gates they were met by some boys who had crushes on Hinata. Naruto wrapped his arm around Hinata possessively and demanded that she was his. Hinata blushed deeply and stammered in surprise. Naruto teased that if she was his Valentine, then she belonged to him, and he smiled while holding her hand as he led her into the classroom. Naruto sat Hinata down at her desk, placed several small gifts on the desk, and sat down blushing. Hinata looked down to find a rose, heart candies, and a small pink teddy bear holding a chocolate heart. She smiled and gave Naruto the chocolate heart she had made. Naruto asked whether she had made it, and when Hinata nodded he hugged her, saying that something like this had never happened to him before and thanking her. Tonari then walked over, speaking to Hinata with a showy manner. Hinata responded politely despite disliking him. Naruto growled and Tonari smiled, asking Hinata to be his Valentine while his friends brought forward a huge teddy bear. Hinata declined gently, saying that Naruto was her Valentine. Tonari accepted the refusal and walked off, leaving the bear behind. Naruto assured Hinata that he would not let Tonari take her, and then the bell rang. Hinata went about her day, receiving and politely declining other Valentine requests. After school in the courtyard, Hinata walked with Naruto by her side and saw Kiba holding a cake while his friends unfurled a banner asking Hinata to be his Valentine. Hinata froze, unsure how to respond and worried about hurting Kiba, who seemed sweet though she did not know him well. Naruto stepped forward and claimed Hinata for the day, wrapping an arm around her waist and leading them away toward her house. Hinata kept walking beside him, uneasy about Kiba's reaction. The afternoon hung on a tense, uncertain note. Naruto remarked that Kiba was the kind of person every girl disliked, just as he disliked every girl. She made a small sound and continued walking hand in hand with him. She told Naruto that he could go home now while he put the dishes away. Naruto protested that they were having so much fun cleaning dishes and laughed nervously. She reminded him to get some sleep and that she had to tutor him in study hall the next day, then gently guided him toward the entrance. Naruto laughed, raised his hands in mock surrender, and waved as she slowly closed the door. Naruto's POV. Naruto woke in the middle of the night to his phone buzzing. The voice on the line asked if he was Naruto Uzumaki and then said that they believed he was Hinata's friend and that Hinata was in critical condition at the hospital. Naruto sat frozen for a moment, then shot out of bed, dressed, and ran to the hospital. When a nurse told him Hinata's room number, he cut her off and hurried toward it. He entered and saw Hinata lying on the hospital bed with monitoring leads attached and soft light slipping through the curtains. She opened her eyes as he approached. Hinata managed a sad smile and told him the doctors did not expect her to recover. Naruto did not believe it at first. Tears filled his eyes and he began to cry. Hinata admitted, with a small, tired laugh, that she had always liked him. She said she sometimes wished she had kept more distance so goodbyes would not hurt so. She reached for his cheek. Naruto held her hand. Hinata told Naruto that she had loved him yesterday, loved him today, and would always carry that affection in her heart. She carefully wiped his tears and encouraged him that sometimes the best thing they could do was to find a way to begin again. As she grew quieter, the machines in the room began to beep in a steady, solemn rhythm. Naruto woke screaming, tears on his face. He checked his phone. It was 4:32 a.m. He told himself it had only been a dream and called Hinata. When Hinata answered in a groggy voice, Naruto asked if she was okay. Hinata sounded concerned, and after a brief, awkward exchange he hung up relieved. 3 hours later he got ready for school and walked there quickly. Sakura approached him with Sasuke by her side and asked if something was wrong. Naruto rubbed his neck and assured her he was fine. Hinata arrived and Naruto acted as if everything were normal, feeling a quiet relief that she was indeed okay. He asked if she was ready for their study session, and she nodded. In the library they set up their notes and worked through problems together, pausing as Hinata quizzed him about the formula for the circumference of a circle. Time passed to after school. As they walked through the courtyard, Hinata paused and pulled Naruto behind a small corner by the side of the school. Naruto asked if she was all right. Hinata kept her head down and then, with a slight embarrassed pause, admitted that she tried to appear fine but was still bothered by small, awkward things, joking that even her socks sometimes slipped down inside her shoe. Time moved on. Hinata's POV. Hinata woke feeling better than usual and hurried through her morning routine when she realized she had overslept. She went downstairs to find Naruto eating ramen. She greeted him with a teasing remark about the pleasure of having him in her house, and Naruto answered cheerfully. Hinata smiled and sat down next to him. Naruto finished his bowl and asked if she was ready for school. Hinata nodded, grabbed her bag, and they left. In homeroom the teacher announced that the students would not be in school for the next 2 weeks and did not give a reason. The class cheered for the unexpected break. After the cheering subsided, the teacher resumed the lesson. Later that day Hinata told Naruto that she needed to go to the store and asked if he wanted to come along. Naruto agreed and they walked to the shop together. While Hinata picked up her items and Naruto grabbed some instant ramen, a cashier announced that Hinata was the store's 1 millionth customer. The cashier asked for her name and then offered 2 promotional tickets as a prize, mentioning that they were intended for a young person and lightheartedly suggesting she bring someone along. Tonari, who had been nearby, offered to help with her purchases and congratulated her on the prize, then put his arm around her in a familiar, overly friendly gesture. Hinata politely pushed his arm away and made it clear she would be taking Naruto to use the tickets. Naruto thanked Hinata for including him, and they proceeded to the checkout together. Naruto smirked, certain Hinata would choose him. Hinata lightly punched his arm and told him not to be so cocky. Tonari teased that Hinata was in love with Naruto, and Hinata grabbed her bags and walked out with Naruto by her side. As they walked back to her house, Hinata suddenly realized what she had just asked Naruto. She stammered his name, blushing wildly. Naruto made a small sound and waited patiently. Hinata asked why he had agreed to go with her to Love Paradise, relieved to have finally said it. Naruto cheerfully explained that she was his best friend and he would never say no to her. The word friend stung Hinata for a moment, but she acknowledged to herself that he was right. At her doorway she wondered if the trip would be awkward, but Naruto assured her it would be fine. She unlocked the door and nodded once. 2 days later Hinata called loudly for Naruto to make sure he had everything packed. Naruto rushed out and closed the door behind him. Sasuke honked from the car and urged them to hurry to the airport, teasing them about being lovebirds. Hinata protested that they were not lovebirds and climbed into the car with Naruto following. Sasuke drove them to the airport and reminded them to get out in front of the check-in area. At the counter they were told their plane would depart from Concourse E15. They made their way to the waiting area and tried to rest. It was past midnight. Hinata, sleepy, rested her head on Naruto's shoulder and asked where the plane was. Naruto, already booking another flight on his phone, answered that they would board at 7 in the morning. An announcement over the intercom confirmed that the E15 flight had been cancelled due to a missing crew member, and many passengers left to reschedule. Naruto reassured Hinata that they had a new flight at 7, and she settled to sleep with her head on his shoulder. Naruto smiled at her and, feeling tired himself, rested his head lightly on top of hers. Morning arrived and Naruto noticed Hinata still asleep. He gently roused her and they both stood up. Naruto checked his phone and said their gate was now E16, just the waiting area next to them. Hinata grabbed her suitcase and they went to find something to eat. In a small shop Hinata brightened at a display of merchandise from one of her favorite shows, and Naruto watched her with mild amusement as she chose a few items. After buying muffins they returned to the waiting area. 2 minutes later passengers were called to board, and they hurried into first class. The flight attendant reminded everyone that they would be taking off shortly and asked passengers to buckle their seatbelts and keep their feet out of the aisle. Hinata admitted she was still afraid of planes, so she put in headphones and started playing music. Naruto reached for her hand to offer comfort. Hinata looked surprised, then smiled and squeezed his hand tightly as the plane took off. Naruto returned the squeeze reassuringly as the aircraft leveled out. After a while of gripping Naruto's hand, Hinata began to drift off. She woke a little later, feeling less tired and a bit bored. She told Naruto she was bored, and he smiled and set up his laptop to play a movie on the small screen in front of them. He offered several choices and Hinata enthusiastically picked Harry Potter. At one point Hinata whispered urgently that they should not speak his name. Almost immediately, the flight attendant announced that they would be landing in 10 minutes and asked passengers to pack their belongings and prepare to deboard. Hinata sighed and suggested they should get ready. Naruto agreed and closed his laptop. The intercom instructed everyone to leave in an orderly fashion as they rose and walked out of the first-class room. Hinata felt excited and bounced around. Naruto laughed and reminded her that they needed to get to Love Paradise first. She rubbed the back of her neck and apologized. Naruto said they should hurry if they wanted to arrive before sundown, gathered all the bags, and headed for the door. Hinata offered to help with a bag, but Naruto said it was fine and told her to figure out the taxi. She nodded and fell into step beside him. After a short wait, a taxi pulled up. Naruto thanked the driver and sat beside Hinata. She felt a flush as he sat close in the tiny car. It was the smallest vehicle she had ever seen. At the dock, Naruto handed the driver some money while Hinata felt a nervous knot in her stomach as they approached the boat. Naruto rested a hand on her shoulder in a friendly way. She stiffened for a moment and admitted she was uneasy about what might be below. She stepped onto the waiting boat. On board, they noticed two girls their age watching them. One whispered that Naruto seemed too attractive for Hinata to be his girlfriend. Hinata made an annoyed face. Naruto asked if she was all right. She smiled and insisted she was fine despite the tension. Naruto shrugged and leaned against the wall. One of the girls approached Naruto and asked if he had a girlfriend. Naruto explained that he liked someone but often got distracted when he tried to ask her out. Hinata was surprised by the admission. The girl walked away, waving awkwardly. Hinata demanded what he meant, but Naruto looked puzzled by her reaction. Frustrated, Hinata sat down. Crew members announced that passengers should exit the boat calmly and open the door. Hinata and Naruto grabbed their bags and stepped off the boat. Hinata shouted with joy and jumped around on the dock. Naruto laughed and reminded her they needed to check in first. She nodded and they made their way to the hotel. Hinata looked up and saw the most beautiful place she had ever been to. Hinata and Sakura were in the dining room arranging snacks and drinks. Hinata ran to the other room to order pizza and called back that she would be right back. Naruto nodded and looked at Sakura, who was in pajamas. Sakura wore a red tank top with pink hearts and white pajama shorts. Sakura asked Naruto if he was excited. Naruto gave a confused look and asked what she meant. Sakura said they were going to play Truth or Dare and indicated the room where Hinata had gone. Naruto felt his face flush at the implication and protested, clearly embarrassed. Sakura giggled at his reaction. Hinata returned and said the pizza would be there in about 10 minutes. The three friends talked about plans for the sleepover. Hinata suggested watching movies, and Sakura proposed that they eat while playing Truth or Dare and then watch films. They agreed. When the doorbell rang, Hinata went to pay for the pizza. When the pizza arrived, Sakura challenged Naruto to Truth or Dare while she stuffed a slice of pizza into her mouth. Naruto confidently chose Truth. Sakura asked if it was true that he had a crush on someone. Naruto answered hesitantly and avoided the question. Both Hinata and Sakura stopped eating and stared at him. Naruto said he had not been dared or asked properly, so he did not have to answer, and the conversation moved on. Naruto then asked Hinata whether she wanted Truth or Dare. Hinata, a little flustered, chose Dare. Naruto dared her to kiss the wall. Hinata, dramatic and embarrassed, reached into her pocket and threw a Hershey kiss at the wall, then sat back down, insisting that the candy counted as a kiss. Naruto and Sakura laughed and admitted she had been clever. Hinata then asked Sakura for Truth or Dare. Sakura chose Truth while wiping whipped cream from her face. Hinata teased Sakura about having a crush on Sasuke. Sakura choked a bit on her food, denied it, and tried to hide her blush. Hinata interpreted Sakura's reaction as confirmation and moved on. Sakura then challenged Naruto to Truth or Dare. Naruto chose Dare. Sakura, smirking, dared him to kiss Hinata. Both Naruto and Hinata reacted in surprise. Naruto hesitated, clearly uncomfortable in the sudden moment, and the atmosphere became awkward. Hinata became overwhelmed and fainted briefly. Sakura waved her hands in concern and Naruto rushed to apologize and check on Hinata. Hinata sat up a short time later and assured them she was fine. After that incident, they did not discuss it further and spent the rest of the night watching movies. Hinata eventually fell asleep leaning on Naruto's shoulder, and Sakura fell asleep holding a bottle of cola. Hinata looked up and saw many tall buildings surrounded by water. Trees and fountains dotted the area, and bright lights flickered in the distance. She tapped Naruto's arm and urged him to explore. Naruto turned and smiled, saying they needed to check in first before seeing everything. The clerk at the front desk asked how they could help. Naruto requested a couple's suite, and the clerk handed over the key with a polite wish that they enjoy their stay. They rode the elevator to the 29th floor, which was the top floor. When they stepped into the suite, Hinata dropped her bags by the door and ran to the balcony. Naruto followed, commenting on the view. Hinata squealed with delight while Naruto pretended to study the sky but watched her instead. She blushed and went back to search the room. She explored the kitchen and opened a cabinet to find instant ramen, which made Naruto instantly excited. He danced through the kitchen, filled a pot with water, and began preparing the noodles with a dramatic flourish. Hinata watched with a mix of amusement and mild concern as Naruto prepared a simple meal. Another door opened to a smaller balcony with a hot tub, a small table and 2 chairs. Hinata admired the view of the water park lights and the distant roller coaster. Returning to the living area, she found Naruto resting on the couch with his bag. Curious, she checked the bedroom and discovered a single large bed with a glass wall behind it, bedside tables on each side, another balcony, and a spacious bathroom. Hinata panicked inwardly at the sleeping arrangement, feeling awkward about sharing a bed with Naruto. Told him there was only one bed. Naruto suggested that they could simply sleep together and proposed making a border of pillows to create a separate space. Hinata found the idea awkward and he quickly realized that, becoming embarrassed and rubbing his neck. They decided to postpone the issue and go get lunch instead. They walked the resort, stopping to admire various sights. Naruto laughed and tugged Hinata along until she pointed out a small cafe. They went inside and found a few people seated at tables. Later that night in the suite, Hinata and Naruto stood in front of the bed again and discussed the sleeping situation. Naruto suggested building a wall of pillows, and Hinata agreed to try it. They arranged the pillows carefully into a small partition. Hinata climbed into the bed slowly, taking care not to knock the pillow wall over, and Naruto settled onto the other side. Hinata turned to face away to avoid eye contact, feeling nervous. Naruto asked if she was okay, and Hinata covered her face with her hair. He called her name gently, and she replied in a small, nervous voice. A comfortable silence followed until Naruto broke it by suddenly singing a long, dramatic line from a song, which made Hinata laugh softly and eased the tension between them. Hinata's POV. Hinata blinked awake and tried to sit up, but something held her in place. She turned her head slowly and saw Naruto sleeping with his arm across her waist. She flushed with surprise and gently moved his arm onto a pillow, smiling at how he had held on instinctively. She stood and slipped quietly to the bathroom, carrying a white skirt patterned with purple flowers and a matching tank top, a purple sweater, her swimsuit beneath, and a small floral headband. She stepped into the hall without shoes and found Naruto standing in the doorway. Hinata asked him to move aside with a playful expression, and when he shook his head grinning, she teased him by making a cat-like motion, which made him blush. He stepped out of the way, and she laughed before returning to her suitcase and telling him he looked too tired to be awake. Later, Naruto emerged from the bathroom in fresh clothes, and Hinata felt a brief rush of embarrassment at being surprised by his appearance. She asked if he was ready to go, and he cheerfully said he was. Hinata grabbed a towel and her bag, and they headed toward the elevator. The elevator doors opened before she could press the button, and Kiba entered. Hinata greeted him with a small wave and followed him into the room where Naruto had been resting. Naruto demanded to know who had let him in, and Hinata protested that it had not been her. Kiba said he had come to check on his friend and teased that Naruto might soon have a girlfriend. Hinata raised an eyebrow and playfully pretended to be surprised at Kiba's fondness for Naruto. Hinata reminded Kiba that they were headed to the water park and warned him not to break in while they were gone. As the elevator closed, Naruto flashed a mock-threatening glare and said he would be very upset if Kiba lingered. Hinata waved goodbye as they left. Outside at the water park, Hinata led Naruto toward a translucent blue tube slide that plunged viewers into an underwater tunnel. They handed tickets to the attendant and boarded the slide. As they slid, the tube slowed and submerged them briefly, revealing fish and jellyfish gliding overhead. Hinata marveled at the view and pointed out a blue fish, and Naruto agreed with her, sharing in her excitement. When the ride ended in a big splash, Hinata laughed as she wiped the water from her face and complimented the ride. Naruto smiled at her, and although he seemed to blush slightly, he turned away, flustered. They spotted a towering slide called the dive and decided to try it together. The ride attendant reminded everyone to hold on for safety. Hinata wrapped her arms around Naruto instinctively for balance, and Naruto returned the gesture by putting an arm around her shoulders. They laughed together as the raft careened through the course and then splashed into a pool at the end. Hinata tumbled off the raft in a carefree manner, and Naruto helped her out of the water. She suggested getting cotton candy and visiting the arcade next, and Naruto agreed. Hinata changed into shorts to cover her swimsuit while Naruto put on a shirt, and they walked to the arcade. They bought tokens and began playing games, including a small basketball game. Hinata celebrated a win with carefree enthusiasm, and Naruto smiled at her playful, childlike joy. When Hinata noticed him watching, she asked if everything was all right, and Naruto assured her that he was fine, though his thoughts tumbled over themselves for a moment before he composed himself. Naruto's POV. After the pool, Naruto pointed out the giant slide called the dive and asked Hinata if she wanted to ride it. Hinata eagerly agreed and hopped into the raft at the entrance. The attendant reiterated the safety instructions, and Naruto noticed Hinata hold onto him for balance. He returned the gesture, and they both grinned as the raft twisted and turned through the slide. They screamed with delight and splashed into the final pool, both exhilarated. Hinata laughed as she stepped from the water and began drying her hair with a small towel. Naruto suggested cotton candy in the arcade, and Hinata liked the idea. They wandered toward the snack stands and then into the arcade, where they collected tickets and enjoyed the games together. Naruto watched Hinata's simple happiness with a warm smile, feeling content and lighthearted in the moment. Hinata suggested they ride the Ferris wheel and tossed her cotton candy stick aside. Naruto took her hand and led her to the ride. The attendant asked for tickets and remarked with a knowing smirk that Ferris wheels were the most romantic rides as the red rope was lifted to let them pass. Hinata responded politely, always gentle. Hinata gazed at the lights and the reflected stars in the glass. Naruto quietly agreed that it was beautiful and watched her. She giggled softly as she looked at the couples around them and, smiling, leaned in to press a quick, shy kiss to his cheek. Both of them flushed and looked away. When the ride ended, the operator asked everyone to exit safely. They avoided each other's eyes on the walk back to the hotel. Hinata suggested they return to the room, and Naruto agreed, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. They stepped into the room and went their separate ways. When Hinata wasn't looking, Naruto allowed himself a small, silent victory dance in the bedroom. He stopped and smoothed his shirt when he heard Hinata enter. She came in wearing a purple tank top and black pajama shorts, blushing as she wished him good night and made her way to the bed. Naruto excused himself to change into an orange tank and fuzzy black pants. When he returned, Hinata was asleep behind the pillows. He watched her sleeping face and smiled, thinking her peaceful expression was like sunlight and her laugh like a gentle voice. He admitted to himself that he was falling in love with her and, content, pulled the covers over himself. Hinata had pretended to be asleep when Naruto had muttered that he was falling in love with her, and she drifted into a real sleep unaware of the rest. Early the next morning, before dawn, Hinata slipped out onto the balcony. She checked her phone to find it was 1:30 a.m., sighed, and sat on the railing with her feet dangling. She thought Naruto might have been turning in bed, but then she heard footsteps and a soft gasp. Arms wrapped around her waist, Naruto had pressed his head to her back and, sleepy and worried, asked her to call him by his name rather than an honorific. He lifted her off the railing and asked in a flustered voice whether she had been going to jump. Hinata assured him she had only been relaxing, and he sighed with relief. Hinata asked if they could go back to bed and, already drifting, allowed herself to be guided inside. Naruto steadied her and carried her to the bed, wrapping his arms around her waist as she nuzzled into his chest. He fell asleep feeling content, then woke before her and arranged pillows between them to make it seem like they had slept as usual. He went to the kitchen, ordered pancakes, eggs, and bacon, and then returned as the elevator dinged with a tray of food. Hinata came into the kitchen in jeans and her purple and white jacket, cheerfully greeting him as she hopped onto the counter. Naruto greeted her back. He paid the deal by person, left a generous tip, and carried the food out to the small balcony table. Hinata was startled by the spread and wondered how it had been paid for. Naruto admitted he had paid for it to surprise her, and she hugged him gratefully, popping a soda open with a satisfied little sound. After breakfast, they decided to go camping for their last day on the island. They packed their things and left the unnecessary items on the bed before heading out to the scattered forest. Naruto lobbed a bag over his shoulder and teased that he would carry everything while Hinata handled other tasks. She pouted and insisted she could carry her own things, but he ruffled her head and insisted. In the quiet elevator, she asked if he would help set up the tent later, and he promised to assist, pulling her into a brief side hug. Naruto walked up to the desk while Hinata picked up a pamphlet. The attendant greeted them sweetly and asked how she could be of service. Naruto told the attendant that they wanted to sign up for camping and set a few bags on the floor. The attendant explained that they only needed to sign and pointed out a small camp store near the center of the forest on a map. Naruto thanked her and hoisted the bags onto his shoulders. The attendant was about to offer more information when Hinata held up a small glass dolphin necklace and excitedly showed it to Naruto. Naruto admired the necklace with her as she put it around her neck. The attendant, a little flustered, wished the two of them a pleasant day. Naruto nodded and led Hinata away while she gawked at the shops they passed. Later, they arrived at the campsite. Hinata leapt out of the golf cart, thrilled by the place, and Naruto called for her to slow down as he chased after her, his bags thudding against his shoulders. He finally caught up and panted, asking why she had been so fast. When she did not answer, he looked up and saw they were standing on the edge of a cliff overlooking the bright blue ocean. Naruto dropped the bags and stepped beside Hinata, awed by the view. Hinata whispered that it was the most amazing place ever as the sky turned orange and purple. Naruto agreed, and they stood together in silence for several minutes. Naruto suggested they set up the tent and reached for Hinata's hand. He pulled, they stumbled, and both of them fell in an awkward heap. They scrambled to their feet, embarrassed, and apologized to each other in a rush before turning away so neither would see the other's flushed face. As dusk fell, they finished pitching the tent and took out the sleeping bags. Hinata was pleased that the tent was up, and Naruto tossed her purple sleeping bag toward her. He unzipped the tent and suggested they get ready for bed. Hinata crawled inside first and closed the entrance to change. She warned in a playful, mock-threatening tone that she would ask Sakura to intervene if he peeked, making it clear she was joking. Naruto laughed, then immediately covered his mouth when he realized how it sounded. Hinata emerged wearing long fuzzy blue pants, a white tank top, and slipper boots. Naruto changed into an orange tank top and white fuzzy pants, and they noticed they were almost matching. Naruto climbed into the tent to sleep, but after a few hours he discovered Hinata was no longer inside. He poked his head out and found her sleeping soundly under the stars. Naruto carried his sleeping bag outside, rolled it out next to her, and lay down. He watched her for a moment, noticing how peaceful she looked in the night. Hinata mumbled that he was a stalker, then opened one eye and laughed softly to say she had been teasing. They both fell asleep under the stars. Naruto woke to the scent of lavender and honey and felt a pleasant contentment wash over him. He opened his eyes to see Hinata sleeping nearby on the grassy slope. He smiled at the sight of her, then nudged her shoulder until she stirred. Hinata yawned, stretched, and suggested they pack so they would not miss the boat. She climbed into the tent to gather their things while Naruto rolled up their sleeping bags. She came out of the tent dressed for the day in a black tank top, denim shorts, and a black fedora. Naruto complimented her outfit before stepping inside to change into his usual black and orange hoodie with denim jeans. They returned the tent to the camp store and caught another ride back to the hotel. Hinata urged Naruto to hurry as they hurried to the dock. They managed to board the boat just in time and settled in to rest. Naruto collapsed into a nearby chair while Hinata sat on the floor, shrugging. When he wondered why she had chosen the seat she had. When they arrived at Hinata's house, they carried their bags to her doorstep and unlocked the door. They set the bags down by the entrance. Naruto headed for the kitchen to raid the fridge while Hinata went upstairs to change. She came back down in comfortable yoga pants and a purple tank top, her hair tied in a high ponytail. Hinata sat on her countertop and teased Naruto about raiding her fridge again. Naruto grinned and apologized. She shrugged and said she did not mind since he came by every day. Naruto set a pile of food on the counter and began making sandwiches from the oddest ingredients, piling everything between 2 slices of bread. Hinata watched him with a smile, amused by how ridiculous he looked. Naruto declared his creation finished and held one out like it was a prize. Hinata hesitated and took it while Naruto bit into his with exaggerated enthusiasm, claiming it was good even though it tasted awful. Hinata took a small bite, immediately regretted it, gagged, and spat it into the trash can. Hinata lightly hit his arm and called him an idiot. Naruto laughed and clutching his stomach, and Hinata let out a small huff before joining in the laughter. That night Naruto decided to sleep over, since many of his clothes were already at her house from his frequent visits. Hinata crawled into her bed and wished him good night. Naruto climbed onto the couch across the room to sleep. The next morning Hinata ran out the door and shouted that they were late. Naruto followed and they made it to school just before the bell. Tonari greeted them with a smug tone, teasing about a princess having been away for a week. Tonari then mocked Naruto with a nickname and high-fived his friends. Hinata told him to stop and called him annoying. Tonari replied arrogantly that she loved him. Hinata shoved him away and Naruto complimented her, which made her blush. The classroom doors burst open and Shinran rushed in, calling for Naruto and throwing her arms around him in a cheerful hug. Hinata asked who she was. Shinran quickly announced that Hinata was Naruto's girlfriend, but Naruto pried her hand away and explained that Hinata was only a close friend. Shinran turned to Hinata, smiled, and said she thought they would be good friends, then leaned close and whispered something that left Hinata speechless. The bell rang and class began. Later, under the cherry blossom trees behind the school, Naruto and Hinata sat with their lunches. Hinata handed Naruto 2 donuts from her lunchbox and he devoured them, praising her. They were interrupted by Shinran's scream as she ran toward them, her light blonde hair bouncing. Shinran clung to Naruto's arm and asked him to go on a date. Naruto pulled Hinata into his arms and told her quietly to go along with it, explaining that he had already promised to go out with her. Shinran protested loudly that Naruto belonged to her, then stomped back into the school when she was refused. Naruto apologized to Hinata and let her go. She felt heat flood her face as they finished lunch. Naruto, smiling, said to himself that it meant they would have to go on a real date. That evening Hinata stammered in surprise at the idea of a date, embarrassed and blushing. Naruto asked whether she wanted to go, and when she nodded shyly he smiled knowingly and celebrated silently, which made her blush even more. In class the teacher welcomed Shinran back and asked her to stand. Shinran talked about visiting Tokyo for half a year, prompting Hinata to feel a chill when Shinran met her eyes. Hinata thought to herself that jokes were on Shinran because she had been born in Tokyo. After school Naruto arrived at Hinata's door and asked if she was ready for their date. Hinata smiled and said yes, she had been waiting for this moment. Naruto explained his plans, first the famous theme park in Konoha, then ice cream, and finally a bowl of Ichiraka ramen. Hinata smiled at the thought and admitted the plans sounded nice. Naruto teased her about falling for him, putting a finger to his chin and feigning smugness. Hinata blushed and admitted she was caught. Naruto, for his part, stumbled over his words in an endearing way that made Hinata notice how nervous he could be. They changed into outfits for the date. Hinata wore a black skater skirt with a long-sleeved purple striped shirt and purple Converse, while Naruto wore orange Converse with denim pants and an orange hoodie. Naruto checked his phone and said they should hurry if they wanted to catch the bus to the theme park, and the two of them set off together. Once they arrived, we climbed on and sat in the back next to a window. I looked around and noticed a pair of lavender eyes almost the same color as mine fixing on me with a piercing stare. Her light blonde hair flipped as she gave me a cold glare. Then I realized she had the same haircut I did. I said nervously that something was wrong while never leaving Shinran's gaze. Naruto turned to me and asked what was wrong. I pointed out that it was Shinran. Naruto suggested, annoyed, that she must have followed them. I stammered about how she could possibly know where I lived. Naruto said she had probably followed them home, then put an arm protectively around my shoulders and promised with a grin that he would keep me safe from her jealousy. I smiled and nodded, a little embarrassed, while Shinran's cold stare felt like it cut across the distance. When the bus stopped, we got off and tried to lose Shinran in the crowd, but we failed. Shinran grabbed Naruto's arm. Naruto shook her off and wrapped his arm around my shoulders, announcing that we were on a date. Shinran scoffed and mocked the idea, asserting they could have more fun now that she was here. I stepped forward and asked what was wrong. Shinran gestured dismissively at me. I asked if she was trying to put me down, and she answered with a smug attitude. I told her that meant she had been beneath me all along and then walked away, tugging on Naruto's arm. Naruto said it had been amazing. I replied that it should have been, since I had gotten Shinran away from us. We bought Ferris wheel tickets and stepped into a completely glass floor, walls, and ceiling with only a pastel-colored seat. The attendant reminded everyone to keep their hands and feet inside. I squealed with excitement and sat on the clear glass floor, and Naruto laughed and joined me. I pointed down and said I could see our school from up here. Naruto teased that it was cliché, and I puffed my cheeks until he softened and called it cute. Lying on my back and looking through the glass ceiling, I announced that the stars were out. Naruto joined me and asked if I was afraid of the dark like most other girls. I said I loved the stars too much to be afraid of the dark. Naruto mumbled that it was one of the things he liked about me, then pretended it was nothing when I asked. The attendant told us to exit slowly. We walked through the shops and bought matching mood necklaces. Naruto asked if I was ready for Ichiraku, and we headed out of the theme park toward the restaurant. At the ramen shop, Naruto ordered 2 specials, and a young woman named Ayam popped out from behind the counter and teased Naruto about always talking about me. I blushed, and Naruto protested before settling back in his seat. Ayam laughed and headed to the kitchen with our ramen. After we ate and I chatted with Ayam, Naruto and I went for ice cream and ran into Shinran again. She greeted us sweetly, but I could tell she was tense. She moved closer to Naruto, and I ordered 2 vanilla cones. Shinran snapped and accused me of ignoring her. I admitted that I had. She declared that she could not be ignored because she was Shinran Aburame. I introduced myself as Hinata Hyuga, handed Naruto his ice cream with a smile, and we walked away. I asked if he wanted to stay over that night while we finished our ice cream. He agreed with a laugh, saying it was nothing new. Back at my apartment, we dropped our things and headed up to my room. Naruto practically lived here with half his clothes already in my closet. I jumped on my bed and he settled on the large couch. Then there was a knock at the door. We both answered in our pajamas, me in purple pajama shorts and a long-sleeved white shirt, Naruto in blue fuzzy pants and a black tank top. Shinran stood at the door and confronted us angrily. I was too tired to argue. I closed the door and stumbled up the stairs to my bed while Naruto laughed softly behind me. Naruto woke up by falling off the couch and frowned at the hazy start to a day he could not remember. He could not tell if they had school. Hinata yawned and handed him a Pop-Tart, greeting him good morning. Naruto replied sleepily and asked if they had school today while chewing. Hinata said she was pretty sure it was Saturday, and Naruto stretched with relief. He asked if she had slept well, and she answered that she had, returning the question. He nodded. Hinata asked what he felt like doing and stepped into her closet while Naruto admired its size. He suggested something new, like hiking or exploring a cave. Hinata brightened and said an adventure sounded perfect. She emerged wearing a loose purple tank top, black ripped pants, and purple Converse, tying her hair into a ponytail. Naruto marveled at how quickly she got dressed. Hinata laughed and said they should get him home to change. She asked if they should bring Sakura and Sasuke along, and Naruto offered to text them while pulling out his phone. After a few minutes, Sasuke and Sakura replied that they would come, so Naruto headed to the car. Hinata told him to come when he was ready. He changed into a black t-shirt with an orange sweatshirt, jeans, and orange Converse, messed with his hair for a moment, and returned to the car where Hinata was waiting. Hinata announced they would pick up the couple waiting at the park around the corner. Naruto pointed out Sakura and Sasuke cuddling on a bench. Hinata unlocked the doors and asked if Naruto was coming or needed a room. Sakura urged that he come and helped push Sasuke into the car. Naruto explained they were going to a cave in the forest a few hours away and that the cave provided maps for adventurers so they would not get lost. Sakura said it sounded fun and Sasuke agreed that the weather was perfect. Hinata reminded everyone to charge their phones in the car because it would be a while, then drove off. Naruto warned Hinata to slow down because she was driving fast, and she laughed that she was under the speed limit. Naruto insisted she was over it and pointed out she was 20 miles over the limit. Hinata giggled and apologized. 3 hours later, Sakura shook Naruto awake and joked until he complained that he had been awake. Hinata touched his head and asked if he was okay. Naruto mumbled that he was fine and unbuckled his seatbelt. Sasuke opened his door for Sakura, who stepped out playfully. At the forest entrance, a staff member handed them a map and directed them to head east to find the cave. They expected other people to be there, but when they arrived, the cave was empty. Sasuke wondered where everyone was, and Sakura guessed they might be deeper inside. Hinata agreed. Sakura declared they should start the adventure and led the way into the cave with the others close behind. Hinata studied the map and pointed out that the left tunnel would lead to jewels. Sakura beamed and headed that way. They found a wall covered with jewels and admired it, but then the ground and ceiling began to shake and rocks tumbled down. Naruto ran to Hinata in a panic and she grabbed his hand, asking what was happening. Sasuke shouted that it was an earthquake and drew Sakura close to shield her. Naruto ordered everyone down and crouched to shield Hinata. After about 10 minutes the shaking stopped. When he looked up, a wall of rocks had separated them from Sasuke and Sakura. Naruto checked Hinata to make sure she was all right. She said she was only a little bruised. Naruto said he was fine but suggested they find a way out. Hinata laughed that it was cliché and Naruto smiled. Naruto called out to Sakura and Sasuke to ask if they were okay. Sakura and Sasuke called back that they were fine but stuck behind the rocks. Sasuke said they would call for help. Naruto asked them to hurry and backed away. Hinata sighed that it looked like they would be there for a while. Naruto opened his bag and listed the supplies he had brought: water, protein bars, a blanket, and a flashlight, and joked that he had packed well. Hinata complimented his preparation. Naruto asked if Hinata had her phone. She took it out and said there was no signal. Naruto showed his broken phone and said they would probably be bored. Hinata suggested they play a game and turned on the flashlight, sitting against the rock wall. She offered the blanket, saying it was cold, and Naruto wrapped it around them as he took a seat. When Hinata asked what game they should play, Naruto suggested asking questions. Hinata pointed out that they already knew a lot about each other, but agreed they had nothing else to do. Hinata asked Naruto what his biggest fear was right now, and he answered that it was not getting out of the cave. Naruto then asked Hinata the same question. Hinata said she was afraid of missing the Mystic Messenger chat rooms. Naruto asked what that was, and Hinata explained enthusiastically that it was her favorite game and that one of the characters, Seong, was the love of her life and that she planned to marry him at a space station. Naruto asked who Seong was, and Hinata admitted he was not real. Naruto sighed in relief, and Hinata smirked, asking what the sigh was for. Naruto stammered that it was nothing. He then moved on to the next question. Hinata urged Naruto to say who was or is the love of his life. Naruto answered nervously that he had never had one. Hinata pressed him about whether that was in the past or the present, and Naruto shook his head while rubbing the back of his neck. Hinata looked oddly disappointed. Naruto thought to himself that he was lying, but he did not feel ready to confess his feelings. Hinata sighed and asked for patience or anything that would help her wait. She complained that they had only been in the room for 5 minutes, but it felt like forever. Naruto chuckled and agreed that it had felt long. Hinata brightened and came up with a new question. She asked what the last thing he thought about before going to bed was. Naruto mumbled that it was her, then immediately panicked when he realized he had said it aloud. Hinata blushed and pretended to ask what the question had been, which made Naruto turn away in embarrassment. After a few awkward minutes of silence, Hinata began to giggle and Naruto noticed tears forming in her eyes. He could not tell if she was laughing or thinking he was foolish. Naruto asked nervously what was wrong, bracing himself for the worst. Hinata wiped her eyes and asked if his answer meant that he liked her. Naruto mumbled that he did and turned back toward the wall. Hinata took a deep breath and said that she liked him too, then embraced him. Naruto was surprised but relieved. Hinata explained that a part of her soul had loved him for as long as she could remember, and she teased that maybe they were from the same star. Naruto asked why she had chosen him and what was special about him. Hinata smiled and said that nothing felt special without him. Naruto began to tear up. Hinata asked if he was all right and what was wrong. Naruto admitted that no one had ever liked him before and thanked her while wiping his eyes. Hinata told him that her heart was, and always would be, his, and she held him close. A voice called from beyond the wall, asking if anyone was in there. Sakura answered that of course they were, which was why they had called for help. and Sasuke told Sakura to calm down. The rescuers announced they were going to break through the wall and told everyone to step back. Naruto and Hinata moved away from the wall and stood up. It took about 5 minutes for the others to clear an opening, and when the wall came down, Sakura and Sasuke ran over. Sakura asked why Naruto and Hinata had been crying and whether it had been frightening. Hinata smiled, sniffed, and took Naruto's hand, saying that she had enjoyed the moment very much. Naruto laughed and called it the second best day of the year. When Hinata asked what the first was, Naruto whispered that it had been the day he met her. Naruto's POV. After Naruto and Hinata started dating, they kept it a secret because they thought it was better to wait. Naruto felt the weight of that choice pressing on him. Sakura demanded to know what the two of them had been doing in the room, and Naruto hid his face and insisted nothing had happened. Sakura leaned over the table and asked Hinata what had happened. Hinata blushed and denied anything, which only made Sakura more suspicious. The bell rang, and Hinata waved as she excused herself for algebra. Sakura noticed both Naruto and Hinata had a free PRD and immediately grabbed Naruto, dragging him to the track to talk. Sakura asked what Hinata meant to him. Naruto said Hinata was his best friend and tried to insist that nothing had changed, though he could not fully hide his feelings. Sakura told him he was bad at acting, and Naruto suddenly remembered he needed to get back to class and ran off. Sasuke appeared and commented dryly on their exchange, prompting Naruto to tease him about being original. Sasuke left when Naruto's rambling confused him. Hinata, smiling, tapped Naruto on the shoulder and explained that her teacher had left in a huff because she had not been paying attention. She checked her phone and was surprised to find that an hour had passed. Hinata said she needed to talk to Naruto about when they would tell people they were dating and suggested they at least tell Sakura and Sasuke. Naruto agreed they should, though he worried Sakura would not be able to keep a secret. Both wondered why they had hidden the relationship at all, then decided there was no reason to hide it any longer and resolved to find Sakura and Sasuke. Sakura suddenly leapt from a bush and shouted at them to stop. Hinata asked how she had managed to hide there, and Sakura only smirked and claimed she had known they were hiding something. Sasuke emerged and lightly teased Sakura about hiding in a bush, plucking a leaf from her hair. Sakura celebrated that Naruto and Hinata were finally dating, jumping around the hall, and the two hurried away into the crowd while shouting that they would talk later. Later, Sakura chased Naruto down the street while Sasuke pursued Hinata. Hinata pointed to her house and urged Naruto to hurry inside. Once they were safely behind the door and had a moment to breathe, Naruto and Hinata sat on the couch, relieved. Sakura forced the door open and confronted them, and Sasuke handed Hinata $80 to cover the damage. Naruto asked if he would get anything for the trouble as Sakura charged toward him. Sakura stood in front of him, then softened into a teasing smile and joked about a wedding. Hinata half-joked that it could be next week, which left Naruto flustered. Sakura declared she would be the maid of honor and spun with a flower, prompting Sasuke to question where she had gotten it. Hinata sat quietly beside Naruto. Sakura insisted they needed to announce the relationship to the school and began taking pictures of them. She reached for her phone and started typing, and Sasuke told her to stop being dramatic. Sakura set the phone aside. Naruto turned on the television and suggested they watch videos online. Hinata mentioned a new singer who had become popular recently. Sasuke muttered that the attention was not going away anytime soon. Hinata's POV at school. Hinata burst into the classroom, breathless, and announced that something had happened. Sakura pushed her desk forward in alarm and asked if it was an emergency. Hinata explained that she was being followed, and Naruto asked by whom. Hinata said that since they had announced their relationship, many students had started following them, calling them relationship goals and watching to see what they did. Sakura rushed to the door, peered out, and slowly closed it, bewildered at the sudden attention. Naruto wondered why the whole school was so interested, and Hinata explained that everyone had expected them to end up together because they had always been close. Sakura lamented that nobody ever thought she and Sasuke were relationship goals, and Hinata noted that they were rarely seen together anyway. She climbed into her seat next to Naruto. Later, the classroom settled into its routines, and Naruto and Hinata adjusted to the newfound attention. Sakura complained that they always acted cute around each other. Naruto replied that maybe Sakura saw it that way, but the school did not. Sakura dismissed the issue and said class was staring, so she would watch them from across the room, then skipped to her seat. After school, Naruto felt tired as they all walked to Hinata's house. Sasuke asked if he was tired, and Naruto admitted that he was. Hinata announced that graduation was almost here and asked what colleges everyone planned to attend. Sakura and Sasuke answered in unison that they were going to Harvard. Hinata felt disappointed that she would not be attending there, and Sakura asked Naruto about his plans. Naruto shrugged and said he did not know yet. Hinata suggested that Naruto figure it out quickly and revealed she would attend the University of Tokyo. Sakura expressed surprise at how prestigious the school was, and Hinata agreed it was a high-ranking university. Naruto sighed that he did not think he could get in, and Hinata assured him they could still meet up after classes and on weekends. Sasuke agreed. Sakura laughed that college would not split them up and insisted they would keep in touch. She imagined that when they were older and married they could be neighbors with a swimming pool between their yards. Hinata and Sakura playfully argued about diving boards and slides, and Sakura teased that Naruto and Sakura would get married someday. Naruto mumbled that he hoped so, then quickly denied saying anything when Sasuke teased him. They all went into Hinata's house and suggested they have a party. Hinata excitedly led them upstairs to her party closet and explained that it was full of party supplies. Sakura and Hinata opened the door together, and pillows, balloons, and streamers tumbled out and covered them. Sasuke checked that they were okay, and after Naruto and Sasuke dug them out, Naruto pulled Hinata away from the mess and declared they should get to work. Hinata started listing what they needed, but Sakura interrupted by shouting that they needed a buffet, and Hinata enthusiastically agreed. The girls went to the kitchen and prepared plates of cookies and bowls of ice cream. Naruto and Sasuke followed and found the table already set with snacks. Hinata announced that the buffet was ready and put bowls of popcorn in front of the couch. Naruto suggested a Harry Potter marathon, and Hinata responded with delighted enthusiasm before running off to get the movies. Sakura teased Naruto about the suggestion. A few hours later, the group watched the movie marathon. Hinata noted that the others were asleep while they watched a scene with Hermione and Draco. Naruto shared a bag of Twizzlers with Hinata. Hinata mumbled that she wanted a milkshake, and Naruto offered to get one. Hinata reminded him that it was late and he did not have a car, but Naruto insisted and left to get the milkshakes. 20 minutes later, Naruto returned out of breath with 2 milkshakes. He handed a vanilla milkshake to Hinata, and she smiled and cuddled up next to him. Sakura woke up and commented that they were just right for each other. Hinata asked Sakura about her relationship with Sasuke. Sakura said that she and Sasuke loved each other and that there was nothing more to discuss, then relaxed back and fell asleep on Sasuke's chest. Naruto agreed that they were all very cute as they sipped their milkshakes. They stayed together that night, sharing snacks and enjoying each other's company. In time, life moved on, and they continued to support one another through the next stages of their lives. They all lived happily ever after. They wrote that they had to list 10 facts about themselves. They owned about 50 pillows for their room. They had 2 Australian shepherds. They only wore necklaces as jewelry. They loved many different things but did not finish the list. They own 2 phones. They have watched more than 35 anime series. They will be taking online classes next year as part of homeschooling. They live in Virginia but prefer not to give specifics. They have very curly hair and straighten it every day because they dislike it. They recently finished painting their room.